I have gained 5 pounds in hot dog.
Yeah, same, but in burger.
Yeah, it has been a weekend. Let me tell you, my 4th of July is my favorite holiday. It has been for many moons. When I grew up, when I was a little kid, like a little this tall, so I guess 5th grade. When I was that small though, my grandfather and my grandmother would host these amazing 4th of July parties where we'd have a huge cookout. There would be a tent. My whole family would be there. When I was 3, it wasn't great. I got stung by a bee. Point is, I have loved 4th of July my whole life. We'd have floats going down his street. I
Really?
miss the early 2000s.
What
I
happened?
really miss the early 2000s.
I want to know what happened. Oh, never mind. I know exactly what happened.
It was kind of a thing.
Yeah, there were a couple things.
I will say, 4th of July was still pretty patriotic in our family up until I honestly, I think what it was is that my grandparents got older and the kids got older. So it was harder and harder to get everybody together at once for 4th of July. But what has never changed is that one holiday every year, I will eat so many burgers, hot dogs, and baked beans that I regret living.
Yeah.
I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, all right, I need to not eat for a few days. That'll be fine. But I am a happy man.
Yeah.
We are just now finishing the hot dogs and burgers.
So to add on to that,
Yeah.
So Kat and I weren't as good. We went through and had like a very bad eating habit weekend all around.
Same.
But part of that,
Do you know how much cake I've eaten this weekend from that cake we made?
I know exactly. I
Also,
wish
how
we had
good was
more.
that
It was
cake?
so good. We literally, Kat and I, that night as
Uh-huh.
when we got back from Molly's,
Yeah.
we were like, why didn't we bring some home?
Okay, so everybody, I'm going to let you in on a little secret because I'm probably never going to sell this. And in 10 years, when I have the money to manufacture this and try and sell it and I can't do so, I'm going to be very angry with myself. Also, my hair is a mess today. Anyway, point is, we made a cake. What we did with that cake was, I will admit, we used store-bought pound cake because we live in Pennsylvania where you can get really not really high quality, but you can get decent quality, like cakes and pastries at any given Wawa because of the Amish.
Mm.
So we used some of the Entenmann's pound cakes, and we took fresh berries that Amanda put in. It was cinnamon sugar and lemon juice, and just mixed them around so they were coated.
Mm.
And then I took two pints of heavy whipping cream, and I'd say half a box, like the 1 pound box of Domino confectioner sugar.
Mm.
Mixed those together. I mixed the confectioner sugar in slowly, but what I mixed with it, whipped the heavy cream a little bit first. That was a little frothy. Then I added in 3 capfuls of vanilla extract and 1 capful of almond, and I just whisked it and I used a hand whisk as I mixed in the sugar.
Mm.
And then when it was all combined, I used an electric mixer.
Yep.
And I just whipped it until it was firm enough that it doesn't fall off if you invert a spoon. And we just layered that between the pound cake with the berries and then another layer of pound cake, berries, and whipped cream.
Mm.
Guys, when I tell you, this is the simplest cake ever and also one of the best tasting I've ever had.
Yeah, it truly
I'm
is
not
so
kidding.
good.
Anyway, welcome to the Lore Lodge.
So to finish the story a little bit though, really quickly there, and because part of this is part of that question I asked you earlier today. So as of last night, the one thing I wanted to do for my birthday weekend, which is this
I
past
gotta
weekend,
figure out birthday
technically.
presents for you and Amanda in the same weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. You're fine. Just
I'll get you something.
we'll figure it out. Anyway, so what I wanted to do, because normally like it's like, oh, we'll go out and do this or that or whatever. I was just like, can we just watch movies?
Yeah,
Like, okay, let's just do that.
literally.
And so we started with Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Could only get about an hour in. There's just something about it. I've never seen Scorsese do a movie like that.
Mhm.
It's a 3.5-hour movie.
The one that you've been recommending we talk about, right?
Yes, yeah,
Sure.
because the book is phenomenal.
Is the movie not?
It's not that it's not phenomenal. It's just the first hour takes place before the book starts.
Okay.
And it was just interesting, and there's really unique editing styles in it. I got to watch the full thing first.
Did he do The Irishman?
He did.
I think Scorsese's just kind of going through a thing right now.
I think he's just kind of experimenting.
Yeah,
I
well,
feel
you
like
get to that point, like, he doesn't need to make movies anymore, you know?
No, he's doing what he wants to for fun because he can.
Exactly.
But anyway, so we got an hour in, and I was like, I just need to watch something else. So we
really quickly tell people what it's about.
Yeah. So Killers of the Flower Moon
'Cause it's
is
relevant to what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Killers of the Flower Moon is a story about the Osage Native Americans in Osage, Oklahoma, who were essentially forced there. They weren't originally from there, but they were forced down into their
What tribe were they?
well, it's
The
the
Osage,
Osage,
but
but
yeah, like what general?
I cannot remember.
Look it up.
They were from that like central northern plains area. So they were forced down into this area by it wasn't Jackson. It was later than that. But essentially, they got partitioned into this really like bad reservation. There was nothing there. Not really a lot of opportunity to grow things, stuff like that. And what happened is that oil was discovered there. And in the natural American way, everybody rushed in. But before anybody else was able to get onto the land, the Osage, what was it?
Siouan.
Siouan. So these Osage were able to negotiate the terms with the American government
Okay.
that they had the say for the rights of the oil. Their reservation as a community all got equal shares to the rights of the oil.
Okay.
And then they could lease their land out in those parcels and then get royalties on whatever oil the companies that come in take from it. So due to that, they became the richest people on the planet in history. And the horrific thing about it is...
I'm going to have to look into that claim because I'm just thinking about Mansa Musa and Mali.
So there was no people as a community. There wasn't one individual.
I know. But
Yeah.
that's what I mean is like
Fair.
if we're talking about a country.
Yeah,
like,
fair.
But yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, but the issue stemmed from the fact that obviously in the early 1910s and 1920s, white people didn't really, on the whole, see Native Americans as people. And a lot of them took advantage of them to the point of a lot of deaths occurred in a lot of shady and almost blatant ways. The issue is that somehow a lot of the people down there that were white people finagled themselves into being the guardians of a lot of these different Native families and individuals because they were deemed not capable of being able to make their own decisions.
Yep.
And so instead of the natives having full control over the money that they negotiated and fairly, had claim to, they had to get allowances from random white people that had propped themselves up in the community, who were also systematically killing them, to marrying into them and then killing them to then get the money from their inheritances to them. It's a really, really screwed up story.
Yeah, there are some, there's definitely some nuance to some of the Native American conflicts.
Yep.
Between white Americans and Native Americans. That's not one of them.
Nope.
That's just bad.
No, it's reading the book. It's like how is this even allowed? But the movie was interesting. There's a couple things I want to get to with the movie. Yeah, well, it's true.
There was nobody to stop them.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, and it's interesting because this whole story is how the FBI got started.
Oh,
yeah.
I was wondering about that because we've been watching through 1883 and 1923. We just started Yellowstone because we finished season 1 in 1923. Which, as I'm watching it, I'm like, this was only gonna be one season because 1883 is 10 episodes.
Yeah.
1923 is 8. The eighth episode very much feels like the setup for the penultimate episode.
Yep.
And then the finale.
Yep.
I think that it was written to be 10 episodes, and then for some reason they decided to go with a second season. I'm not mad. But like in those you're seeing Pinkertons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about 1923, but in the 1883 series you're seeing Pinkertons. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. You're seeing Pinkertons, 1899.
Yep.
So that got me thinking for the first time ever. I'm like, what were they doing before the FBI? And it turns out they were just hiring private detective agencies to go do the FBI's job.
Yeah, so that's the wild thing about this story is that like a bunch of the private detectives that, either the Native people hired or even like good people, the rare few in the community, were just getting killed.
Yeah.
So Hoover, it was Hoover that started it. He
was the first director. I don't know if he necessarily started it.
I think he did because I remember
Not
at least
my
in the
forte.
book. Yeah. So anyway, the main character of the book, her name is Molly Burkhardt.
Okay.
She went to Washington herself,
Mm-hmm.
she was, spoilers alert, I guess, she was being made unwell.
Okay.
I won't say by whom. And she spoke to, it was either Wilson or Hoover himself. And
I'd be shocked if Wilson did anything about it.
well, in the book and the movie, doesn't.
Yeah.
But Hoover puts together.
Wait. You're telling me the guy who screened Birth of a Nation in the White House, the KKK movie, you're telling me he didn't help the Native Americans?
I know, shocking, right?
I am stunned.
Yeah.
Wasn't he also involved in I believe he's involved in the creation of the Federal Reserve.
I would not be shocked.
Yeah. We don't like Woodrow Wilson.
No, not particularly. But so the first FBI agent, can't remember his first name, but his last name's White. I think it's like Edward White or John White or something like that.
Mhm.
He was a former Texas Ranger that didn't really want to get involved with anything anymore. He was like borderline getting ready to retire.
What year are we talking about here?
I think it was early 1920s.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he and his brothers essentially were being tapped to get into it. And he was like, I don't want my brothers getting involved. I'll do it.
I just love how informal everything was.
Yep.
Like, you just handed somebody a badge.
Yep.
I miss it.
Yeah.
I didn't even live through it, and I miss it.
But yeah, so
it's born in the wrong generation.
So I'm getting to the point of the movie because we watched a little bit this
Mhm.
morning as we were waking up, and there's a bit that I want to re-bring up in a minute with you.
Okay.
But it's getting to the point where it's about halfway through where the book was now.
For the record, for those watching, I was planning to talk about Missing 411 tonight.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Maybe.
We'll definitely get there. The whole reason I brought this up was to get to the point where we got an hour in.
Yeah.
We switched to No Country for Old Men because Deacons, and watched the whole thing, and then Oppenheimer started to autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on Amazon Prime. And do you remember how Kat and I felt about Oppenheimer?
I feel like you guys were underwhelmed, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's
Amanda
about
fell
right.
asleep.
Yeah. So we were.
It did not need to be 3 hours long.
No, I will say, though, we were so wrong.
What do you mean?
Oh, my God.
What?
Kat and I were so wrong.
About what?
Oppenheimer. Something happened where, for whatever reason in the theater, either it was because, I don't know, for whatever reason.
Could it be that we decided to see Barbie first, so Oppenheimer was just kind of a buzzkill?
Partially, but believe it or not, yeah, maybe this might be part of it. Considering coming from No Country for Old Men to Oppenheimer is surprisingly a little bit of an uplift.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say there were details that, for whatever reason, were pretty blatant on second watch that we mixed up the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It may, you know what I think it was? I think it was more the brunch prior. I think that might have been the issue.
Are you telling me that 3 orders of mimosas across the table was not a good idea?
If you're trying to comprehend a movie about quantum physics, no.
No, this is what it was. Here's the issue. I don't know anything about regular physics.
Yeah.
So for me, this was watching a fantasy movie. I mean, Cillian Murphy might as well have been playing Gandalf.
Yeah.
Like that's how much I understood about what was going on. For me, I was just like, yes.
But that's the thing is, like, even the interpersonal relationships, we got it so wrong the first time around. We thought that he was cheating on his wife from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was with Florence Pugh first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she, like, couldn't get with him.
Because he wasn't a communist.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, a variety of other reasons. And, like, you know, still not good that he cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, so that was his first love. He's trying to get over her. This is weird thing. It was like, that's, like, still bad, but not as bad. It's like, okay, well, this character's slightly more redeemable. We remember him having a lot less of a sense of humor about things. And also just, like, generally, the interpersonal relationships were a lot clearer. Maybe it's because it was the second viewing, but it was just shocking that it was that much better. And we literally both, even this morning, after having, like, watched some more of Killers of the Flower Moon, we both got up when we were starting the day and we were like, I was just still thinking about Oppenheimer. I can't believe we got it that wrong the first time. Like, it was just so good.
It was a good movie.
But the thing about...
Still did not need to be 3 hours.
The thing about Killers of the Flower Moon that I want to address on here, though, is a specific scene that I texted you about this morning, that I attempted to call you about this morning. That I just... can you clarify it at all?
Can you describe what happened to me?
Yeah, so essentially what happened was Leonardo DiCaprio's character in the movie did something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert De Niro...
Went out with a 26-year-old?
I don't
It was a joke about how he only dates 25 and under. Continue.
Oh, got it.
Robert De Niro.
Fair enough. So Robert De Niro gets angry and brings him to the local Freemasonry lodge, and
Sure.
yep,
As one does.
and brings him in. It's a very beautiful room,
I'm sure.
but it's a single room, and it is a big wood paneled room, very beautiful tile on the ceiling and the
Mhm.
floor, and there is a small, basically podium that's more like a pew that has what I assume was a Bible on it, but you didn't see the cover.
Okay.
And they were essentially giving him a minor interrogation about something that he did, and
Are all of these characters Masons?
supposedly,
Okay.
I don't know if Leo is, but we'll get there in a second.
All right.
So Leo admits that he did essentially a side deal to something that happened. So DiCaprio is made, the book is removed, likely
Mhm.
the Bible. He is made to put his elbows on the podium.
Uh-huh.
And then De Niro goes on a mini monologue about how he is a 32nd degree Mason, and thus he gets power and respect and is allowed to do this. Takes out a wooden paddle with the Freemason logo on it, the square and compass with the G on it, and proceeds to beat Leo on the back side like he's a schoolboy until he falls over and then goes on another monologue. So just wanted to see if there was any legitimacy to this.
Hollywood, I gotta say this. For as much as people think that Freemasons run the world, and particularly Hollywood, Hollywood has no idea what Freemasonry is. The one movie I've ever seen get it close to right is National Treasure.
Yeah.
Outlander, there's a scene where Jamie, this might be spoilers, but there's a scene where Jamie just makes a whole bunch of people Freemasons. She's like, "You're now Freemasons," and I'm like, this was 1740 something. There was Freemasonry was not just a kind of thing you did on the weekend. You're fine. No, you're fine. But yeah, so I've read the 32nd Degree Ritual. I've read the chapter in Morals and Dogma. There is no reason for me to believe that a 32nd Degree Mason would have any kind of special authority to flog somebody.
Yeah, well, it was just so it's
also like
so random.
You would know he's a 32nd. That's not something that people hide. Like everybody, that's the other thing is people think that Freemasonry is this super secretive thing. First of all, back in the 50s when it was at its peak, I think 1 in 20 American men was a Freemason.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about those numbers.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, for every 100 people, 5 were Freemasons. Yes, so 1,000 people in your town, 50 of them are Freemasons. It just like it was a lot more common. There was not a huge conspiracy. A lot of that came about in the 1960s. Like if you went back to 1950 and you started telling people that Freemasons were satanic pedophiles, they would be like, "What are you talking about?" What? They basically were like, are you on about that Taxil stuff, that Leo Taxil thing? Like, I thought this has been debunked for 50 years.
Yeah.
You don't, the satanic stuff didn't really make it to mainstream American belief until the late 60s. And that was mostly because of, the Illuminatus trilogy and Principia Discordia and the whole concept of Discordianism. I think it's Robert Anton Wilson, I think is the name. He was an author, sci-fi author, and modern fantasy author, basically, who just wrote this whole thing about how you shouldn't trust authority and everybody's being coordinated by the same people. And his whole point, if you read through his philosophy, was to sow distrust in government and the powers that be. It wasn't about slandering the Masons. It was just about getting to his end goal. I don't totally agree with everything that he believed in, but having read through some of his philosophical quotes, it's something I get. But that said, no, there's no reason to think that a 32nd degree Mason would be spanking somebody with a Masonic paddle. I've never seen a Masonic paddle. There's not one in my lodge. It also doesn't make sense that it would be going on in a blue lodge if that's what it was. That would be it just doesn't make sense.
I do like the idea of having someone make a Masonic
Oh,
paddle.
I am down with the concept of creating the Masonic paddle. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, huh?
Yeah,
So,
very interesting. In terms of things being weird and semi inexplicable,
okay.
where are you with the current missing 411 Great Smoky Mountain cluster?
With the exception of exactly one case we've looked at,
Mm-hmm.
all of them feel very explicable so far.
So that actually leads me to a different question. Based on where we started with missing
Yeah,
411 and where we are now,
sure.
overall, on both research for missing 411 in and of itself and cryptid research in and of itself,
Mhm.
where are you with cryptid responsibility for anything to do with missing 411?
I mean, I just personally, as far as cryptids go, I'm of the belief that basically, anything that is a real cryptid, I I think for the most part, we're probably looking at humans trying to explain things that they don't quite understand.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure that if you told somebody 500 years ago that there was a small mammal that had a duckbill and venomous fangs, but also laid eggs, that would be a cryptid. But no, it's just a platypus. So I think that for the most part, we're probably dealing with animals that have not yet been confirmed to exist by science, which is what the term cryptid means. But people take that's what cryptozoology is. It's the study of things that may or may not exist.
Oh, we should do. This is just coming to me now, but we should do a video on that. What is a cryptid?
Yeah, we touched on it in one of them,
Yeah.
in one of the Bigfoot videos, actually, because it was a cryptozoologist who didn't believe in Bigfoot, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, so as far as defining what cryptid means, I do think that there is some possibility for whatever we're calling Bigfoot to be responsible for a few of these things. I don't think Bigfoot is a giant hairy ape man. I think Bigfoot is probably a reference to poorly understood, more wild tribes of Native Americans that, because if you look at it, they don't describe these people, they don't describe Bigfoot necessarily in a lot of these stories, as being a different race necessarily, like a different species. They will say in some of them they're not Indians. Like that's the exact terminology they use. They say they're not Indians or they're strange Indians. In the case of the Site Ka, for example. But I don't think that there's a ton of reason to believe that most of these are supernatural or most of these are the result of some kind of quote unquote cryptid.
Mm-hmm.
If we just focus on the Great Smokies really quick, because that's what we've been talking about so much. Jeff Haig really feels like, he got in a fight with the other two kids and went missing, and they covered it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you look at the David Paulides version of events, there's no mention of the snowball fight. There is no mention of any sort of lecturing by Eugene. It's just there's a whole bunch of information left out. And even I didn't find the thing about the snowball fight. You found that. So in that case, I think that this was a dispute between a bunch of teenage boys that turned deadly. In the case, and I don't mean that they killed him. I mean, I think that they basically weren't paying enough attention, or that they told him to go kick rocks or whatever. And Eugene, I think what's most likely is Eugene left the two boys behind at camp. Lee and Jeff got into a fight, and Jeff walked off in a different direction. I think that the whole thing about Jeff being left behind at that crossroads point just doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense. Looking at Mark Hansen, everything about that story screams unprepared.
Yep.
And that's it. I mean, if you look at everything involved in it, there is zero reason to believe that something drove him off that trail. If you look at, let me ask chat, quick question. Without Googling, and if you haven't heard me talk about this in the past, refrain. Chat, what do you do if you are stuck on a mountain and you lose the trail? You can input your answers now. Well, in the case we're looking at this week, veteran mountaineers were cited as saying that what you do if you're lost is you follow a stream, and it will lead you to civilization. The problem is that is not true in the Smokies, because most of those streams eventually will lead you to civilization after 20 or 30 miles, and going across other streams and trying to navigate through ridges and steep slopes. I mean, it's not as simple as you're out on the plains and you're following a river. There are all sorts of obstacles here. You can't really see anything. Sometimes the streams go under the ground for a little bit. And some of these streams they're little more than a trickle of water that you might just lose. So in the case of, Mark Hansen, he probably thought the right thing to do was go downhill and follow a stream, not realizing that that's absolutely not the best option when you are somewhere between 2 points on a trail. He did not have a sleeping bag. I'll grant him that. I mean, he would not have survived that night alone, which is why Ben should not have left him and should have remained with him and shared a sleeping bag.
Yep.
There's not another option in that case. Your only way of surviving the night, if you are on the trail and it's that cold, is if you share a sleeping bag.
Yep.
If one person doesn't have one. Obviously, Ben had one and he survived. So I think Mark Hansen just panicked and tried to get downhill. Trenny Gibson. It really sounds like a lot of people were in the comments section saying, well, she probably stepped off trail because she had to pee and then got lost. And it's like, you can't. Not right there. Too rugged, too steep. And I mean, they would have found her. Like if she had fallen there, they would have found her. And the dogs would have found her.
It was still in the fall, right? What time of year was it?
October.
October, yeah. So there's, especially down there generally still would have been leaves on the trees.
Oh yeah, we've been there.
Well, in the sense of like, if things are barren and it's March, and there's not really a lot of good indicators of what is and isn't the trail based on what's beaten down versus what is green, a little harder. But when it's, still also, noticeable.
Like, nobody heard a scream, a crash, anything like that. She pops off the trail. Nobody sees where she goes, and then she turns up later. My thinking is she either popped off the trail, because one girl said this was around a bend. My thinking is she maybe popped off the trail and walked through the brush along the side of the trail for a little while, or that she just, stopped, hid behind something, waited for the rest of the group to pass, and then walked, a couple hundred yards behind them, and then hooked east when she got up to the Appalachian Trail. A little bit more confusing about how she could have gone missing where it was said, and ended up where she supposedly did, but, I think it was like, in the end, like 5 or 6 dogs trailed her to the exact same spot. That's weird.
Yeah.
The $600 ring, not dating, but her parents had shot at a boy who tried to climb into the house. It just, a little too much of it screams to me that there's a piece of information that was not reported here.
Yep.
A lot of people did also point out that she could have been gay and run off for that reason. Sure, I'd say that's possible. I don't think that's in any way unreasonable to suspect. But no, I don't see a ton of reasons to believe that something supernatural happened to her. There was also one other thing. A lot of people commented about how they had heard a version or read a version of this story where it said that none of the students knew they were going on that trip that day, that it was spontaneous. And it's, I doubt that could have been true even in the 70s, that a teacher could have just gotten away with not informing the parents of the students where anybody was going. They got there in a school bus. Like, somebody knew this trip had been planned. And I doubt that permission slips were not signed. Part of the reason I doubt that is that it did not come up in any of the reports. And this isn't one of the cases where I had to rely on news reports and, a few scrambled eyewitness statements. This is a case where I had all the files. I want to make it clear, David Paulides also had all of the files. For what reason he chose not to use them beyond his own confirmation bias, I do not know. I really and that's kind of what I was getting at with this title and all that, is my opinion on David Paulides has shifted considerably as a result of looking at these ones, because like I said, Trenny, it seems like Best case scenario, she ran off with somebody who didn't murder her. Worst case scenario, she ended up being trafficked.
Mhm.
I think, unfortunately, I think one of those two is the most likely option. And then there's Abe Ramsey, which was by far the most egregious. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to say that I think David Paulides lies, because I don't think he does. Because whenever I've caught him in a lie, there seems to be as I've been going back and looking through it, there seems to be a pattern of him citing something. So he didn't make it up, but he also didn't bother to check it very well. And I don't think it's dishonesty. I think it's just that he's not competent at what he's doing here. He says he was a police detective. Haven't found evidence that he was ever an actual detective. He finished out his career on a desk job because he kept soliciting autographs for charity that wasn't actually happening, and then he was selling the autographs on the side. I don't look at him and see a brilliant con man. I look at him and see a guy who's probably around, pretty average intelligence, who thinks he's onto something and doesn't know better. Because for me, I was totally enthralled. I thought he was really onto something. And then I started looking into it for myself, and I'm a trained researcher. And every time I found, I was like, all right, well, this source does say this, but is this source reliable? And it seems like his thought process, his research process, stops at, is there a source? And that he doesn't consider if that source is reliable. Because in the Abe Ramsey video that we just put up, it was, his own sources didn't support what he said. Which is, again, why I say I think there's a bias here. Because, he ignores the whole moonshiner thing. And I think it's because the way he's looking at it is like, it's much more likely that the kid was taken by Bigfoot than that he was shot by moonshiners or drowned in a mash barrel.
Does he actually say
that's the charitable. He doesn't ever actually say Bigfoot. He always just really aggressively implies Bigfoot. And people will come into my comments who are big Paulides fans and go like, oh, well, he never says it's Bigfoot. And I'm like, no, he never says it's Bigfoot, but he does say, this person reported they saw a large hairy figure carrying a child over their back off into the mountains. And he'll say stuff not like someone must have taken him, but something. And then he'll go on to say, and it wasn't a bear. It's like, okay, he's obviously implying it's Bigfoot here. The problem is I think that some of the people reading his books aren't catching that.
Either that or they may also agree with the suspicion.
That's true, but if you agree with the suspicion, just stick to it. Be like, no, I do think it is Bigfoot. I think he's right. Like, don't tell me he doesn't say that, because he objectively implies it. It's right there. So that's frustrating. But with Abe, it was like basically the entire story was lifted from unsolved disappearances in the Great Smoky Mountains, and their bibliography literally says numerous internet websites as one of the citations. And I'm like, I'm not going to harp on, listen, if you wrote it and at the end of that chapter you had a source list that gave me specific articles, I'd consider that enough. I don't need you to give me inline citations. I don't need you to give me footnotes. Endnotes might be nice, but I don't need you to give me that stuff. I just need you to tell me, of the sources in your bibliography, which ones were used for this specifically, And it's a book. It's little bit higher standard when it comes to books, But that's not what they did. They didn't even cite specific works. They just give us, hey, we looked at this collection of documents in this county's record system, and it's from 1973 to 2004. Like, that doesn't tell me anything. If you tell me it was in this article from this date, or this article by this person, that I can work with. If you give me numerous internet websites, that doesn't tell me anything.
A lot of
you got to tell me either in the writing, you need to say this appeared in this source, or you need to tell me at the end we used these specific sources.
Yep.
It's got to be one of the two. Like, you've got to say in the chapter at some point, according to this source. And then I'm not going to harp on you, okay? I'm not going to harp on you if you don't bring it up every single time you reference that source. As long as you've mentioned it and you've made it clear through context that's what you're alluding to, I'm going to consider that okay for anything short of an academic paper. You know? But that's not what they did. It was county records from this place for these years. It was numerous internet websites. At one point, they basically, I think they cited an author, but not a book.
I will say there are a lot of people that are chatting now that are commenting on the idea that, Paulides may not be, coming to the, we'll say, right conclusions, or, he may have some level of confirmation bias, but a lot of people are saying, it is worth it to some regard to acknowledge that, in many ways he has spearheaded this, and at least he's provided, like, the vast majority of starting points for this kind of thing.
He has. And I think the reason I am unwilling to accuse him of anything beyond incompetence is that I don't know if he's deliberately lying. I don't know. He might be. Like, I don't know his motive. If he's doing this because he thinks he's onto something and he thinks he's doing the right thing, I can forgive the lapses in judgment and the lack of I'm trying to think of the right word here, but I could forgive the problems I see. Would probably want to gently tell him, hey, these are real people. Make a little bit more effort. But if he thinks he's doing the right thing, I'm not gonna slam him for that. And I will say, yeah, this is helpful. On the other hand, if he is doing it solely for profit and he knows that he's leaving things out and he knows that he's changing the stories, that's where I have a problem.
So your main issue is that based on essentially the critique of the work that you've done so far, the issue is that with the level of evidence that is piling up, you are becoming more and more suspicious of the underlying motive, and that's why you're having a difficult time acknowledging some of the positives throughout all of that.
Yeah, it's the good needs to outweigh the bad, and the motivation is very important. I think if the motivation behind it is I'm doing this solely to trick people, that's scummy. You shouldn't do that. If it's just to drum up drama, that's scummy. You shouldn't do that. If you're going into it thinking these disappearances were never solved and maybe I can give the family some closure, I don't necessarily think that you're helping in this case, but I do think that you are at least in the right mindset, and I'm willing to accept your problems more readily.
Well, to put you on the spot real quick.
Oh boy,
what do you think we do?
I think we look at stuff people are interested about and give them the most accurate story possible. That's what I try to do every week.
What is your overarching goal with what we do here in terms of the context of what you're kind of talking about Paulides doing versus what we're doing and how those things kind of overlap?
Yeah, that's the thing is I didn't go into this with a goal. I went into this because we came across something, and I was like, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. I'm a historian. I was not working in the history field. I figured this was close enough. And initially we were talking more about folklore and history than we were Missing 411. It just turned out that Missing 411 is what people wanted to watch us for. So I was like, all right, let's take those skills and apply it to this. Maybe I can get to the bottom of it. Maybe the government is hiding something from us. At the time, that's what I thought. I was like, I feel like based on what I'm seeing here, the government's hiding something. And I wanted to uncover what it was. And I wanted to support Paulides in that mission. The more research I did, the more I moved away from that. And I would say that now the focus is not on disproving David Paulides. It's not debunking him. I don't want to ruin his career. That's not my goal. If anything, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with the guy because I think that he has made some good connections. He has compiled a list of, at the very least, interesting disappearances in most cases. And I think that with his platform, he could be a force for good. And I think that he could use this kind of empire he's built to do something better. To get to the bottom of those things. I would also love to sit down and talk to the guy about Bigfoot because I will say, as a Bigfoot researcher, I'm sure the guy has a lot of really interesting stories to share. A lot of interesting information, and maybe he actually has been kept down by Big Smallfoot. I don't know. But yeah, for us, what we do, it's gotten to a point where I just want to tell people the truth. I find a story that people think is, weird. I find an unsolved mystery, a conspiracy theory, and I go, all right, I have a platform and I have time. That's the great thing about doing this full time is I have time to go and sit and go through unsolved mysteries and conspiracy theories and things like that in a way that very few people are able to do. And I have the training to do it. So I see myself as just kind of being the right person at the right time, I guess. I don't think I'm necessarily special. I think that there are a lot of people out there who could do what I do, but we got lucky enough to be able to do this full time. So since I can do that, I can really dig into these stories, and I can, sometimes it's going to be something like a random missing 411 case where it's like, this is a weird story. I wonder what really happened. And then we tell people it is entertaining, and hopefully at the end of the day, there's a good lesson from it about what not to do while you're in the woods. Or maybe we can, every once in a while, I feel like, we stumble across something like with Bobby Beezup, where most people who know the David Politis version don't know that camp was eventually busted for a huge child abuse scandal. Like, that's not part of Politis' story. And I don't blame him for that, because that story, his version of it, came out before that was blown open. But, I like when we get to do something like that, where we get to tell people, hey, here's what really happened. Here's the truth. Because I think the truth matters for the truth's sake. I don't think that there necessarily needs to be anything beyond that. I get to make a living doing it, which is nice. I'm never going to complain about that. But the motivation has never been, money. It's just, hey, I get to get paid for researching stuff and telling people what happened. That's kind of cool. I like that. That's nice. That's
like, that's literally putting your history degree to work.
Yeah, I'm just doing what I was trained to do. This is what I went to school for. Like I said, it's nice to make money doing it, and but really what's nice about it is that I get to dedicate the time to it. And every once in a while, I feel like we do come across something where we might be able to make a difference, like with Tommy Booth. I feel like, we can shine enough light on that case to force an investigation. And if the Ridley police won't do it, maybe we can get the FBI to do it. Maybe we can find a way to bring someone in and make a real difference and bring closure to this family and justice to this young man. Because as we looked at that one, I think that was a turning point for me emotionally with what we do. Before, it was kind of like, this is cool. We get to do this for, but it's probably not making a difference. But it's a good career. We get to provide people good stories. We get to get a lot of people comment and tell us, hey, I'm so glad you do the show. It gets me through my work days. Or, I was in the hospital for a few weeks and I binged all your videos and it really helped me get through chemo. Like, that kind of stuff is, at the end of the day, I think a huge reason why I feel so happy to do what we do, why I feel so fulfilled. Yeah, so as far as motivation goes, yeah, part of it is that this is how we make a living, and I'm going to keep doing it because it is how we make money, and I like doing this better than I liked marketing. But also, I feel like we can make a difference. We can bring closure to some families. We can shine a light on some things. And, in the case of certain instances like Flat Earth, like Tartaria, I feel like we can put some charlatans' feet to the fire. Eric Dubé has no recourse for the video we made. Mind Unveiled, same thing. Anybody who is actually willing to sit and watch those videos, who believes that stuff, who actually has an open mind, which I don't think most of them do, but the people who believe that stuff because they are ignorant, not unintelligent, and not narcissistic, those people, maybe I can reach. And I can stop somebody from falling into that rabbit hole that at its most personally impactful leads to somebody losing their friends and family because nobody wants to associate with them because they're crazy and they say weird stuff, and you are the friends you keep. That's always a nice thing, I guess, is to drive people away from that fate. And then at worst, a lot of these conspiracies boil down to one thing at the end of the day, and we see it every time. It always seems to crop up. Somehow it always gets back to the Jews. They find a way. There's never actually a connection. A lot of the time, the connection is that the Masons are somehow involved, and the Masons have to be Jewish, despite the fact that almost all American Masons are Christian. But I mean, I'm enjoying the part where I get to provide concrete evidence that your conspiracy is wrong.
Yeah, it's just fun to debunk.
Yeah.
I got to say, for just a couple things to add to that. So the Tommy Booth case was a big turning point for me as well, emotionally, in what we do, because prior to that, it was just like, I think I had just gone full time a couple months prior with this before that. And, it was along those lines of like, hey, I was producing commercials and stuff, but I was glad to be able to do this full time because then we could kind of start moving a little bit more towards the things that we both want to do,
Right.
like narrative filmmaking and things like that, just kind of expanding along those lines. I love this for a lot of the same reasons that you've just listed. But there are times where it's like, the stuff we talk about is pretty morbid.
Mm-hmm.
And, you question is like, is it right to do that? Is it right to dig these things up and put them out in the public and things like that? But then sitting down with Tommy Booth's mom at that one point and hearing her tell us directly, thank you for making this. And I've spoken to other moms in this community that have seen your stuff and they feel very similarly to how I do. Mm-hmm. And I remember us asking, like, are you sure? Because like we were like, like, we're glad to bring attention to it, but we want to make sure we're being respectful and things like that. And her saying, no, what you guys are doing is important at the very least for us, because it gives us hope that one day this will be solved. And it's keeping the word out there so people learn about it and people carry it forward to then eventually, hopefully, bring some closure. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, to some extent, because this was a conversation that happened like 6 months ago, but it was one of those moments where, especially just like looking through the case files with her in that coffee shop, it was like, wow, okay, yeah, so this is not, like, that's where I really started to take things a little more seriously. Not that I hadn't been taking them seriously up to that point, but it was that extra fuel on the fire. It was like, all right, yeah, no, not only is this worth doing, it's important, but it's also important to directly the families involved. And I am directly responsible for how this is portrayed.
Yep.
And I want to give as much respect to those families and the people in these stories as I can.
And looking at also the media landscape today, it's something that we didn't have the ability to do early on, but with 500,000, thank you guys, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
oh my God, that was cool to see.
Yeah, that was wild.
His mom texted us at like 12 last night.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you guys hit it. And I was like, oh my God, we did. But now we're at a point where we get at least a couple 100,000 views per video, and maybe we can start working our way into the algorithm in a way that when people hear about a strange missing persons case, the first version of it they hear is from the channel that actually researched it. All too often I go on and I see that somebody is, and I don't fault these creators. I consider them to be storytellers. I don't think that they are necessarily thinking that there's anything wrong with doing things this way. I don't know that it really is, as long as you try to avoid being exploitative about it. But I'll see, a lot of people they'll take an article or a Reddit post and they'll, put it down and they'll tell that version of the story. I would like to have our video come up before that, because that's not the best way of telling people information about real events. So I think we have an opportunity now where if somebody goes to look up what happened to Tommy Booth or what happened to Todd Geib and things like that, they're not getting the most conspiratorial version possible. They're not getting one that was written for clicks and views. They're getting one that was written to tell the true story. So if we can get to that point too, that's just a bonus. That's the way that we can make sure that the first content people see about something is the best researched.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing is that we're not the only ones in the space that are doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you want to name some of the other creators that are doing that?
Missing Enigma. I have, Nick has been on the show a few times now as a guest. I cannot say enough nice things about the guy. From him as a person to him as a researcher, just phenomenal. I think that, I don't think that there's anybody who has better informed Missing 411 and missing persons content on YouTube than the Missing Enigma. I think he has the by far the best informed. I mean, the guy we'll come at something with documents we found on the National Parks website from a FOIA request, something like that. He'll do the FOIA request. And he has a little bit longer of a timeline for videos, so I think he has a little bit easier of a time doing that. We're working on getting ahead on that, but he just does a phenomenal job. Let's see, another channel that I can't say I have looked into the veracity of their research, but hearing from other people in that community about specifically the veteran community, Wartime Stories does a very good job. I will say I've done some reaction videos to his bedtime stories content because it's a little more supernatural and spooky. But no, he's done some good stuff. Scary Interesting is good. I haven't looked into how they do their research, but at the very least, I have found that I rarely find something wrong with their material. But those are, all some good storytelling accounts that I feel like are at the very least ethical about it. And who I would recommend being your first watch on a subject, if not us. Obviously, I would love for us to be your first watch on a subject, but if we don't have it or you don't think we're the best, which is fine, go ahead for one of those guys. I think they're awesome. Slightly different, but Roanoke Gaming, Roanoke Tales, I think he does a good job too. Of course, Isaiah Wendigoon. What is there to complain about with Wendigoon?
Yep.
The guy is just incredible, and one of the best friends the show could ask for. That's one thing I am so happy to say about this community specifically overall. I rarely run into somebody who's not a good person, or somebody who's looking for their 15 minutes, or somebody who's doing it just for money. For the most part, when I see people in this space, they are trying to do the right thing. And I think that is admirable. And I think that is something that needs to be praised, and I think people need to be made aware of it, because there's definitely a tendency to believe that, anybody from Hollywood down to YouTube creators, if you go dig through the skeletons, they're not a good person. I think it's good to point out the people who are good people, who do good work, and should be the face of this kind of platform. And I think that Missing Enigma, Wendigoon, Roanoke, I think they're all of those guys are up there.
Nice.
Also the unsub guys, because they were fun.
Yeah, that was a great time. I know a couple of people had mentioned in the chat throughout this stream that they came over from that, and I saw we got a decent bump from that, so
Woo!
Appreciate that.
To get a decent bump from that.
Yeah.
Good God, man.
Yeah, they were phenomenal guys, treated us really nicely. Hopefully we'll be able to get to do more stuff with them in the future.
Would love to.
But yeah, it was great chatting with all of them. Eli was great because he was basically the me version that they have. It was really fun chatting with him about all the tech stuff.
Brandon and I got along very well. That was fun.
I ended up having a long chat with Cody, more so than I thought I was going to.
They say don't meet your heroes, but in this case, it went very well.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it was funny because I'd watched some of Donut's stuff back when I was in college, and we were hanging with one of the corridor guys, and I watched a ton of their stuff and things like that.
We talked to one of the corridor guys about Ashton Forbes and MH370, which was fun.
Yeah, it was wild. But yeah, it was wild because it was ages ago. The only thing I really use YouTube now for is work or looking up how to fix something. And it was wild seeing, meeting a bunch of the people that I used to watch when I was younger.
Yep.
And now being in a position where we're kind of, I wouldn't quite put us on the level of not
up there yet.
Yeah, we're not on the same level as them, but to be even invited to the conversation was really nice.
That was fun.
And it was great to see that they were all great people. I'm hoping I'll be a little less nervous next time around.
I don't think you seemed nervous. I went through and I watched some of it. I don't think you seemed nervous.
Yeah, I was. It was then, and it was also the dinner and stuff afterward. I was it also didn't help that I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only person there more tired than me was Cody.
Yeah. You got to stop asking yourself if you deserve to be there. I think that's your problem.
Yeah, I have a really routine issue with imposter syndrome. That's my issue.
You just got to accept that it's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when, you look at this room currently, and then the number says that 900 people are watching us, and I'm like, no, they're not. They're just 3 cameras.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, I think we actually did manage to cover everything I wanted to talk about with
Nice.
Missing 411. Yeah.
And it's 7:57.
which means we have the correct amount of time for super chats.
Exactly.
So for those who are new to the show, the way that we do our Q&A section at the end of the show, it's the last half an hour. Sometimes it goes longer depending on how the show is going and how awake he and I are.
Yep.
But we take Q&A in the form of super chats. We do not differentiate based on how much the super chat was for. It could be $2, it could be $100. We will answer it as long as we have time. If we get to a point like if we've been doing the super chats for an hour and it's just time to go to bed, we will sometimes start prioritizing based on money, but we will prioritize first based on relevance. So that's out of the way. Yeah, I think from there we just get started with these questions.
Yeah. Do you want to begin with starting with relevance, or?
Yeah, just go in order for now. We got 30 minutes.
Yeah, that works. The Sky King 5 for Canadian $5 says, time to listen to my to mysteries and drink my milk so I can grow big and strong like the lore
Hell yeah.
lads. Maybe then I can play for the Lodgers basketball team. Incredible.
I don't think we will ever have a basketball team. You and I are
Probably
both
not.
far too short for
I
that.
was going to say big and strong. I don't know if that necessarily describes us because we are neither big and we used to be strong.
Yeah, I will say, looking at that video of us sitting next to them, I was like, oh, we got some work to do. We look small.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I would write it off as them being older, but Brandon's 28.
Yep. Yeah. No,
So
we have not been prioritizing the gym, and it's.
I gotta get swole. I think it's because you and I spend so much time around each other and people who are similarly sized.
Yep.
Like, no, I am a small man.
Yeah. None of our friends around here, or even like a lot of my friends from high school, really hit it hard that much, except for Brian.
Yeah, well, even Tommy, who's ripped,
Mm-hmm.
he's not big.
Yeah.
He's a very lean muscle guy.
Yeah, it's true. Kellen, the official data for $4.99 says, perfect timing for my ISP to have an outage. Thank the gods for cell service. Yeah, that's brutal.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, do you have Comcast? Because it goes out just every once in a while, just for a couple of minutes. They're feeling silly and goofy. It'll just be every day. I think when we were trying to do Weird Bible, the internet dropped repeatedly.
We keep getting people saying that our volume is low.
Is it?
No.
They might be new people who just might not be aware that for whatever reason, YouTube live stream volume seems to be lower.
Yeah.
We, on our end, everything is where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So
we have tried to address this problem on a number of different occasions.
I did find out, you might have told me this, but I did find out that YouTube apparently, like, if you peak, cuts your audio to 70% or something.
Yeah, it does. It as soon as you peak, it puts on a hard limiter. And then even if you adjust properly, it's like once it happens, even if it's in the first 30 seconds, automatic cut.
Yeah.
And then you can't, even if you put gain on it and stuff, it's really hard to bring it back up. So, but the thing is, as far as I've seen, we have not peaked today.
Yeah, I don't know. So, and on the Streamlabs side, we've also tried to make sure it doesn't happen, but it's, on Streamlabs side, it's not peaking.
Yeah.
It's just right where it's supposed to be.
Yep. So
we'll get an actual sound audio engineer guy in to properly set everything up for us at some point. Now that we're at that point, but for now we're sticking with this setup.
Yeah, a lot of other people are now commenting it's perfectly fine for me. So it could be your end, just saying, but maybe something on our end. So we'll keep looking into it.
We're trying our best.
We are, as we always do. John Crump News for $1.99 says,
"Oh, hey Crump, how you doing?
How we doing?" Totally Not JMO for $20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Says, the milk of human kindness is such a strange thing. The milk commanded of me to seek it. I may have found it, as it might be the substance that comes out of something. You captured my attention, and I captured the rest of those words in my brain, and they will not be released from my mouth. Moving forward. Mike DeRusha for $1.99.
Speaking of milk, though, if you do come to Blobfest this weekend and stop by the table and you grant me a chocolate milk, I will give you a T-shirt.
I'm not gonna lie, because you were looking directly
at my eyes. Are we gonna get the T-shirts in time for that?
We have to find that out tomorrow. Also, because you were looking directly into my eyes, I thought you were asking me if if you stop by Blobfest.
No. If they stop by.
No, I know, but it was just funny.
I probably should have looked at them. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you stop by Blobfest and you bring me a chocolate milk, I will give you a T-shirt.
There we go.
Assuming that we get the T-shirts.
Yeah, hopefully.
Otherwise, I'll give you a hug, I guess.
We are planning on getting Archies.
That's true. We're going to get little mini Archie plushes.
Oh, yeah, Kat, if you're watching, we're a go on that, by the way.
Yes, that is a go. The idea was that the mini Archie plushies would be available by request only. They will cost money, but they will only be available by request. And you must be one of the first 10 people to ask. Well, the first 10 people to buy, I should say, because we're not going to make a ton of them. But if they sell well, we might be able to go to our management and be like, hey, guys, can you help us with this?
Yeah, exactly.
We'd like to put them online.
It'd be fun.
Yeah.
It would be fun. Mike DeRusher for $1.99 says, Aiden's man bun makes him look like Hecklefish. Unfortunately, I don't know who that is.
I'm going to look it up, though.
Yeah, this wasn't my style today. This was Kat. So we grabbed dinner at Rush Bowls for the first time.
Okay, how was it?
It was actually really good. And it was also shocking because while we were there, the two girls that were working, they were like, hey, did you by chance go to EA? And I was like, yeah, why? It was like, oh, we're Matt Memo's daughters, who was like one of my consistent teachers in high school. Yeah. And I guess because they were in like elementary school when I was in high school, and like I'd hang out in his office a lot because he was the film guy that was there. I mean, he was the tech guy, but he did the film stuff. And
apparently, Hecklefish is the fish from the Y-Files.
Interesting. I'll take it as a compliment. Anyway, Magdalenus Rex for $5 with one of the coolest names I've ever read says, if you ever do more on masonry, could you do a video on M&D? It gives Gnostic vibes and can't tell if it's descriptive or proscriptive towards Gnostics.
I have to look at it. I got to figure out what MND stands for, though, because that's going to definitely be a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, agreed.
Soda department.
Soda.
The mini soda department. No, that wouldn't work. No, that wouldn't work. Yeah.
The Mountain and Dew department.
No, it would just be the Mountain and Dew.
Yeah.
Like, Mount and Dew. Oh, wait. That's not what I was going for. That is not what I was going for.
Oh, incredible. Alan Smith for $1.99 says, it's the god darn Pinkertons, Dutch.
Yep. I've been having a lot of fun with Red Dead.
Yeah, I got to get that.
I cannot play it as, like, I struggle so much with immoral actions.
Same.
And the problem is it's not always, it puts you in situations where you don't have any choice but to kill, like, cops.
I've been in
it's not that I care about killing the lawmen necessarily. It's that I care about my little like character bar going down, and I don't want it to.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When Kat and I play Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but the only difference there is there's no honor bar in Black Flag, and like if I'm being hunted by privateers and a random ship gets in the middle of it because they're not paying attention, and then they get mad at me.
Oh, you told me about this.
For defending myself. They're meeting Davy Jones.
Yes,
that's how that works.
Important to understand.
Exactly. The way I behave in video games is very different than the way I behave in real life, which is kind of funny. Quattro for gifted the Lore Lodge memberships to one individual.
Is it gonna be somebody who hates us again?
I don't know. We're gonna find out. And then it might have been Local Legends Burton Ram or either that or it says he's been a member for 1 month. So maybe it's just letting us know.
Maybe.
Cool. The guy 42 for $30.06. Love the specificity there. Hey guys, just curious, what would it take to be a guest on the show? I have a couple of topics I would love to discuss with both of you, like the gap theory and an in-depth revelation study my dad did. Love the show. God bless. Well, it starts with an email.
Yeah, email us. Tell us you're interested in being a guest. And usually the way we're trying to work this now is that we will have a chat with you privately first. We'll set up a Google Meet, and if we think that you'd be a good guest, then we'll bring you on. If not, we'll probably, if you're open to it, give you some pointers on how we think that what you could do to get yourself to a point where you could be a guest. It's not a thing that we do because of how big you are. We've had people on who have no platform. We've had people on who have a huge platform. It's more just about, would you be a good guest for the show? And if you would, then we'll have you on. If you wouldn't, then we'll tell you why.
Yeah, absolutely.
So far, I don't think we've had anybody ask who we've spoken to who we turned down.
Yeah, no, we haven't. Anybody we've met with, we have not rejected.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I get in touch with somebody that I said I was going to reach out to because I wanted to talk to him about land nav and why it's so hard to search for people in forests.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Nove 42 for $10 with 2 in a row. In the post about the North Pole on X, you replied to, I saw a lot of people bringing up an old map showing land with a lake and a rock in the lake at the pole.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea why these people cling to these old inaccurate maps and seem to believe them to be more accurate than modern maps? Can I answer it before you do?
Yes, I just want to say that there's a Rattling Bog verse in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong or not, I think that just purely has to do with a level of distrust for anything modern information in one way, shape, or form. I think, there is a general understanding that there are a lot of lies being peddled currently.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a overwhelming distrust in organizations throughout media. So when you see something that is modern conflicting with something that's older, and you already have a level of distrust for things that are currently being published,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a level of proclivity to believe the previous versions of things and assume that it was changed for malicious reasons. That's my guess. I'm curious where you land on it.
I think that's largely it. I think the Tartaria videos are probably the best explanation of it. The ones we did, because what I see time and time again is that there is something understandable and somebody doesn't understand it. And for whatever reason, rather than trying to understand it, they take the route you just described of denying reality. I mean, with the maps, I think those ones are funny because, I mean, do you know how they used to make maps?
I have a general sense of just essentially it was a lot of surveying and observation and then recreation based off of that.
Yep. If you were making a map of the east coast of the United States in the 1510s, how were you going to do that?
You were going to do it from either walking it or sailing a ship along it.
Oh, you sure weren't doing it from walking it. You were doing it from a boat, which meant
Yep.
you were using the stars to figure out distances.
Mm.
You were not walking. You were not counting your steps and saying, this is approximately a mile. You were using the stars to calculate how far things were from you. Led to some inaccuracies in a lot of ways. And when you had inaccuracies, and you frequently did, you would take multiple maps made by multiple people, and you would compare them, and you would find the points where they agreed with each other, and you would go from there. And that was how you built most maps, most of the ones that were used in navigation anyway. Very rarely was somebody's first pass at a map being used for navigational purposes. It was usually, all right, when you see something that looks like this, you're there. Nobody was taking those to go, all right, here's an accurate geographical representation of North America. When you think about the North Pole, when did we get there for the first time?
Wasn't it like the early 1800s?
I'm pretty sure it was like the early 1800s, which means any map from before the 1800s, they're not going to know what's at the North Pole. All they're going to have is old wives' tales and sailor stories.
Yeah.
So I think in large part, it's that there is something that is understandable, and there's a person who doesn't understand it, and that person does not go try to understand it. They go and look for why they don't understand it, because them being ignorant is bad. The way they see it, at least. I think there's no problem with ignorance. If you don't know something, that's not a big deal. But if you don't know something, you shouldn't be loud about it. You shouldn't talk about it extensively. It'll embarrass you. You will find yourself embarrassed. Unless you are incapable of feeling embarrassment, in which case you'll just continue to dig your head into the sand and insist that you are right about something.
That would just be impressive, honestly.
That is most Tartaria and Flat Earth people.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, that's kind of the general point on my end. Is I think that there's a disconnect. I do think in many cases it is just a lack of intelligence, because I think if you don't lack intelligence and somebody explains it to you, you'll no longer believe that. So the people who continue to believe it, I think it's because they are incapable of accepting that they were wrong or that they don't know something.
I think there might be room for the wiggle room of somebody who is so in one way, shape, or form, they feel they have been so wronged
Yeah,
by.
I guess indoctrination is
Yeah.
an option too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's if you distrust authority and you don't know how something works, you're unlikely to believe the authorities on it.
Yeah.
And that's healthy distrust of authority is a good thing. At the same time, you shouldn't just blanket distrust anybody who is an expert in something.
Yeah.
Like that's just not smart.
there is such a thing as too much distrust,
Yeah.
even in terms of the government and you know any organization. There are good people in this world.
Yep.
It takes a lot of effort to figure out who's who. There's no doubting that, but
Yeah.
they do exist.
They do.
Next is Totally Not JMO for $5.38, and I love the specificity yet again. This is the most Lore Lodge stream to ever. Everyone complaining about movie talk is funny. There is no topic on the live lodge.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got to the topic.
We did get to the topic.
But, let us have a little fun in the beginning.
We can't have fun at the end.
Exactly.
We gotta get ourselves loose. That's why there's usually about 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning where we're just chatting about stuff.
You guys get to catch up on where we are in our lives if you care. Some of you don't, but that's fine. Just skip it.
Yeah. Gotta remember, this is usually the first time either of us has had a
vaguely normal conversation in the week. Yeah.
yeah, or even a public conversation in the day.
Yeah.
You are usually the first person I see on Sunday that does not live in my home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
You are usually the first person I see other than Kat. So
yeah.
Liam became a new member.
Thank you.
Jackie P gave us $4.99.
Thank you.
Kellen, the official data for $1.99 says no paddling. Now I don't want to join.
Well, I mean, Kellen, if you want to join, I'll paddle you. If it's that important to you.
You don't have to join the Masonic Lodge. You join the Lore Lodge for that.
Exactly, yeah.
That might be a different lodge, actually.
Might be a different lodge entirely.
Starts with an L.
The dungeon.
Yeah, there you go. We
do have a basement.
No, I was going to say.
Should we make it a dungeon?
There is a dungeon in town.
We do?
It's what Soundbank used to be.
That was the prison?
No. It's called it's like something dungeon.
Oh, the fun dungeon.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, which is, I know it's supposed to be like an arcade, but not a good name. No.
Well, I think
implies something else.
You know what the issue is? I think their drinks are fantasy themed. So that was their mindset because it's in the basement.
Dungeons and drinking.
Yeah, that would have been a lot better, a lot less concerning. They have a bunch of arcade games and stuff, which seems cool.
Really, any other fantasy word would also work. Although, actually, no, it wouldn't. Yeah, you see, this is a rough one, isn't it?
Yeah, because I was going to say cave is worse.
Fun cave, bad. Fun fantasy, also not good.
The game basement sounds brutal.
Ye Old Arcade?
I was gonna say the dwarf.
Dungeon.
I was gonna say the dwarf den, but that sounds like slightly bigoted.
Might, yeah. Is this just a rural thing, or do they have to use the term that was advertised? Did they have midget wrestling when you were in college?
No.
That might have been a rural thing.
I think it was a rural thing. Well, yeah, considering in the middle of New York, that probably would have somehow gotten people arrested.
Champs would set up a ring in the basement and have midget wrestling once a month. It was like WWE style, just with little people.
It shocks me how cities versus rural areas are generally 20 years apart.
Yeah. I just think about that sometimes. I'm like that. I never went. And just to be clear, it wasn't out of any sense of morality. I just wasn't interested in that kind of show.
Yeah.
But it occurred to me that might not be a normal thing that happens a lot. Now I'm having a moment, but anyway.
Yeah, no, understandable. Mike DeRusher for 199 says, that man bun has me waiting to hear lizard people.
Oh boy.
I didn't think that it was going to get so many comments.
Two kinds of people with man buns. Urban hipsters and Ian Crossland.
Who's that?
He's one of the guys from down at the Beanie compound.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
He's been on Pop Culture Crisis with me twice, and it's always very funny because his version of things is always way more out there.
Oh, really? That's funny.
I love him though. I like that guy.
Magdalenus Rex for $2 says masonry intrigues me so much, but OCA bans it. R.I.P.
OCA. Assuming that's a Catholic thing.
It'd be interesting. My mom gave us $20 and saying congratulations again on the 500 subscribers or 500,000 subscribers. That'd be funny if it was for 500 subscribers. That was a point. We were there.
Orthodox Church in America.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. We did make it. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Couple years. Oh, YouTube is not
Receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming.
Yeah, is something wrong?
Streamlabs is fine. We're hooked up to Ethernet.
You want to run a speed test really quick?
Yeah.
All right, it's on YouTube's end. It's definitely on YouTube's end.
Yep. All right, cool.
All right.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. This happened to us during our Christmas stream too, but that made more sense.
Yeah, that's true. That does make sense.
I can't remember. Oh, OCA, yeah, Orthodox Church in America. I'd ask your priest. I would ask your priest if it's excommunication or if it's frowned upon. Because if it's just frowned upon, I would go ahead and look into it. Because in general, the reasoning that the Catholic Church has, obviously not the same, but the reasoning the Catholic Church has is just nonsense.
What is their reason?
They meet in secret, therefore they must be gay.
Is that actually their reason?
I'm not kidding.
Oh my god.
It has evolved, but that was the original reason in like 1739.
Wow.
Yeah. No, they were literally like, yeah, they meet in secret, and the only reason you'd meet in secret is if you were doing perverted things. So, they must be gay or pedophiles.
The irony.
It's a little ironic. The whole Satanism thing wasn't brought up until like 1884, and that was based upon, again, no actual evidence, no investigation, just came out and kind of decided that Freemasons were Satanists. I will give it to them that the Grand Orient of France, I wish they'd just stop pretending to be Masons. I got some heat for this in the Masonry subreddit. But I think a lot of Masons don't realize that it gives the rest of us a bad name when the French insist upon doing absolutely nothing Masonic while calling themselves Masons, holding to none of the original principles. I mean, if in French Masonry, you do not have to be a man, which is probably the one aspect of Freemasonry that I can't think of a good reason why we have that rule, aside from just wanting a space that there aren't women in, which, considering there are female Masonic branches, maybe they should have their own full Masonic branch of some kind, but if you're also providing a route for women to be involved, I don't see the problem with having a men's only club, in the same way they don't see a problem with having a women's only club.
Yeah.
I think if that's the other thing is, like, at first, that's what this was. It was a social club for dudes to talk about how to be better dudes. Like, that is kind of the thing about Masonry, is that we make good men better. I think part of that does have to do with having a space where men can talk to each other as men.
Yeah.
So, it's
in the sense
of
in the sense of more specifically, like, they don't want to be able to talk about the things to make yourself better.
Yeah.
You sometimes
have to talk about what is making you worse.
Yeah, and you sometimes have to do things that would make you at the very least feel, if not look, either weak or lame and stuff. And for a lot of men, they get really insecure about looking that way in front of women.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it right and you just have a group of guys, it's like a group of guy friends sitting at the fire, like on a Friday night, chatting, and just, things get deep.
It originated out of operative, from what we can tell, it originated out of operative masonry, which was an all-male profession just due to what it entailed at the time. And so these were originally all male because there were no female stonemasons. And I think over time, it just kind of stayed that way, where they were like, all right, well, this is an all-male space. We're just going to keep it all male. That's changing in some jurisdictions now. But that's why I brought it up first, because I think it's the least important aspect is, yeah, women can be Masons in France, which is like not technically how Masonry goes, but all right, whatever. The bigger problem is that you don't have to believe in a supreme deity. You can be an atheist, which is antithetical to Freemasonry. It just entirely antithetical to Freemasonry. And the only thing that they do hold to is that you cannot be joining for enrichment, and you can't be, or actually, no, sorry, they don't do that. The only things that they stick to that American and British Masonry has is that you cannot be enslaved.
Wait, what? Huh?
You cannot become a Mason if you are enslaved. Which is completely irrelevant today in Western Masonry. So it's like that one doesn't really matter at all because they hold to it. But as far as keeping it all male and keeping it all religious, they have done away with those two. I think the only important one of those, like the truly important one of those, the women thing is more frustrating for me because it opens up the avenue that you can claim that while celebrities aren't part of American Freemasonry, they're part of Universal Co-Masonry, which is based off of the French version, which is the version that's more Satanist anyway. There's nothing Satanist about American and British Masonry at all. But there are some things about French Masonry that don't do enough to differentiate themselves from, from Luciferianism, I guess would be the term, and atheism. I think there's a problem with atheists. I just think that if you're going to have an organization that is founded upon belief in a supreme deity, atheists seem like the first people who should be ruled out. And the problem was, I think that the French allowed some atheists in, didn't properly vet their members, and those people did away with the religious aspect. And I think people don't understand is that the religious aspect in Freemasonry is not about being the right religion. It's about having the assumption and the belief that there is somebody above you, that there is a power higher than man to whom you are accountable. And so by removing that, you create a very dangerous situation because with Freemasonry, your oath is to God. Whatever God you consider to be supreme, that's who your oath's to. Which means if you break the oath and you're a believer, you have now broken a promise to God. That's a fearful thing for a person, for a religious person. As an atheist, there's no reason to follow the rules. Everybody makes a big deal out of the whole, the things where there are violent punishments for telling the Masonic secrets. There are violent punishments for, it's really just telling Masonic secrets. But those aren't real. Nobody actually ever gets punished for sharing anything. That's why there's so much stuff out there right now. A lot of it was published by the Masons themselves. But in the case, the thing that's really holding you to your oath is not the concern for punishment, because I'll be honest, they tell you while you're doing it that you won't actually ever be harmed. The real linchpin for being a Freemason and for following Masonic guidelines and ideals is the belief that you will be punished in the afterlife if you don't, or that you will be punished in your regular life if you don't, depending on what level of influence you think that your God has. So the true threat in Masonry is that to disobey your oath is to disobey your God. And then it's between you and God. When you don't have that aspect, people will use Masonry for their own enrichment. People will go against it. People will not follow the obligations to, help their brothers so long as it does not impede themselves. We're not called to give up everything we have because somebody in the lodge has cancer. But if we have an extra $500 that we were planning to spend on getting our car detailed, we're expected to take that money and go give it to the cancer patient. To just give you a general example. Those are all good things. I don't think that you necessarily need a God to do those things. But French Masonry, in direct opposition to American and British Masonry, actively encourages members to be politically active and to use the lodge for that purpose. So, when you are somebody who doesn't believe there is any sort of spiritual reward or punishment for anything you do in this life, and you go into a place like that, what's the likelihood you're not going to use it for financial gain, for gaining power, for taking over, for your own malicious needs?
Pretty low.
Exactly. It's not that everybody's going to do it. It's just that the opportunity is there. With a masonry that has you swear an oath to your god, different threat.
So it's also just kind of like, it seems like the biggest thing at the end of the day is just it provides a baseline level of trust between the members of the community that no matter what you are doing within that community, you all had an oath that you all consider greater than yourselves. So you can then fall back on that, where if somebody's being weird, it's like, well, we all agreed to this oath.
Yep.
So maybe they're just a little weird and they're not trying to harm me or put themselves ahead of us for selfish reasons. So it provides the opportunity for the sense of the ability to approach things in as optimistic of a format as possible.
Yeah, and today especially, that is, I think, a large part of it. Also have to remember, though, that when Masonry was originally structured, and when you get the first constitution of Freemasonry in 1723, I want to say, people were a bit more superstitious. So by swearing an oath to God back then, a lot of people would take it more seriously than just, oh no, this might bite me in the ass when I die. Like back then it was going to be, oh, well, I might lose everything if I go against God. So, I'm not going to say that one of those is better than the other. I just think it's important to understand that, in our modern minds, we do have to, when we're thinking about why people constructed things a certain way, got to put yourself back into their mindset from whenever that was in order to understand it. It's not necessarily going to make you agree that it's right, but you will better understand why it was going on. I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Let's see. One thing that people talk about a lot is the way that Christianity kind of absorbed some pagan deities and pagan heroes as saints. And they say, oh, well, that was an attempt at destroying culture. And in some rare cases, it was. For the most part, it was that they thought they were bringing these people to salvation. Mm-hmm. And that the best way to do that was tell a little white lie that, hey, that god of yours there, your god of fire, actually a saint or actually an angel. Allow them to accept it and then move on. If you look at it from the way people see it today, they think that the reason was destruction of culture. And again, in some cases, that was the point. Like the residential schools, in a lot of cases, that was the point. It was just straight up strip the Native American culture from these people. Oh, hello. You were on a walk and you decided to stop in? Oh, I can come say hi to the people. We're just doing question time. But yeah, so I think that's, but if you go back to 600 AD in St. Patrick, he was doing it because he thought he was saving people,
Yeah.
Hi.
Ella says hello. I don't know where any of the cameras are.
That one currently.
Nala. That's all.
There we go.
I go face.
Champ.
Oh, what we got next?
We have quite a number, but it is 8:30, so I wanted to get an idea
All right.
of what you're thinking.
When you say quite a number.
At least a couple dozen.
Okay. Wow.
Probably more like 3 or 4 dozen.
Let's go to relevance here.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to wrap that up a little bit.
That was kind of the wrap on it. Was just, it's anything that old you got to look at and put yourself in the mindset of the people who did it first.
Yep.
Not saying you got to agree with it, just saying it's the best way to understand it.
Fair. Burton Moran says happy 500K.
Thank you.
Just got to 5K himself, so congrats on that.
Congratulations, man. You're not that far away.
Yeah.
Just keep at it. When I say that it's just a matter of time, in almost all cases, that is what's going on. Some cases, somebody's just not interesting and doesn't change. But that is not the vibe I get from your content, Bert.
Yep. Ori Clough said, hope we had a great 4th of July. We did. Thank you. And then Jedi Drewster T said, "Love seeing you guys on Unsubbed. Would love to see y'all on an episode of the Red Thread for a missing persons case."
Do you have any idea how easy that would be for them to do?
Don't ask us. We're not gonna ask them to be on it.
No, I have at this point already told Isaiah that I will anything he wants from me, I will give him after the help he has given us over the last 2 years. You know, we are very much indebted to that man. So if he wants us on Red Thread, we will be on Red Thread.
Yeah, but we're also we're not gonna harass him to be on it ourselves. If they want us there, we'll happily be. We're not gonna badger them. Sean Gowan for $10 says, "Have you looked at missing persons in Wyoming?" Ian McLaughlin looks like an interesting case. It also looks like there may be a cluster around Riverton.
Have not, but Aiden and I have had Wyoming on the mind lately.
For many reasons, yeah.
But I can take a look at that. What was it? Kane?
Yeah, it was like CIAN, not totally
Either Kean or Kane.
Yeah, probably Kean. McLaughlin. Looks like an interesting case, and a cluster around Riverton. But yeah, we'll definitely write that down. Mike DeRush said, "It looks like you were interrupted while doing the Devil's Tango."
Kean McLaughlin missing.
The Lion says, "Y'all's Unsubscribed podcast was one of my favorites. I'm doing I believe it's a 300 blackout build. Gonna call it the Nectar Raccoon, Honey Badger Sugar Weasel. That's incredible."
Oh my god.
What else? Lord Phil the First for Canadian 555. Love the specificity. Says, "Don't get to see you live often. Really like what you do. Your research and editing are always on point. Weird Bible rules. Archie for Prez."
Hell yeah.
I would vote for Archie for
I
president.
would vote for Archie for president. Well, yeah. Couldn't possibly be worse than the other two options.
Agamemnon's Jim Bag for 556 says, "The Bushens around my sapling have started speaking French. I guess it's time to shave." Interesting.
It's not time to shave, it's time to burn.
Yep.
The only cure for French is the Inferno.
We're going to have a few here about the David Politis thing. Miss Maury for $10 was saying, "Regardless of whether David P. was a detective or not, we know that the police can suffer from confirmation bias and tunnel vision. And even when the proven innocent, the cops are still convinced might be the same here." Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
Especially with how much work he's done in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely possible. Your mom gave us $50.
Thank you, Mom.
Congratulating us. So thank you very much for that.
you.
I wish Tyler Dalrymple for 420 said, "Love what y'all do. I wish MS had cooler cryptids." I assume that's Mississippi.
Think so?
Yeah, because I think MU is Missouri.
Yeah, I think so. MS. I'll look it up. Massachusetts is MA.
Yeah. Gom for
It is Mississippi.
Nice.
I will tell you, I believe Mississippi would have a Choctaw legend called Nalusa Falaya, the Long Shadow. That might be something you would be interested in.
That sounds interesting. Gom for member for 11 months says, "Sorry I haven't caught a live in a while. I've been too busy slaying some Windussi and bribing politicians to legalize open carry of blue snow shovels." Windussi.
You're doing the Lord's work, sir.
It goes without saying. Sean Gowan for $5 says, "While you're covering the Great Smoky Mountains, could you do a review of the Battle of Blair Mountain?"
I gotta look it up.
Fair enough. The Castman777 for $5 says, "Have you done anything on alien abductions?"
Largest labor uprising.
Interesting.
Could be interesting.
Sounds it.
But it looks like it was Logan County, West Virginia. So when we get to Virginia, West Virginia, definitely.
Nice. You're gonna want to hear this one.
Sure.
The Castman777 for $5 says, "Have you done anything on alien abductions? I got abducted by aliens when I lived in San Diego, California. They brought me back to Mexico." I don't think you can call ICE aliens.
I think he was. Yeah,
He was either doing that.
I'm not
or
sure if he was
referring
talking
to-
about the undocumented immigrants or if he was talking about ICE.
I was thinking more of the idea of like a helicopter with big lights coming out of the sky and taking him out
Yeah,
and bringing him back.
we went different directions
Yep,
on this.
yep,
I
yep.
can tell.
Yep.
That sounds that. I mean, if anybody's aliens right now, it is the feds.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Stan Lopez for $5 says, "Do you think that Bigfoot is an undiscovered creature, possibly a different species of human?" I guess you kind of answered that earlier.
More on the latter side, yeah. We have a few videos on Bigfoot. We will be making more. They just did not do super well, so we're holding off for a little while.
Alexander Wright for $10 says, "A high schooler drowned in my town on the 4th. That is incredibly sad. Most of the town suspects foul play was involved, but don't know yet. Small town cops have trouble dealing with stuff like this since it rarely happens here. Be curious to know what the case is."
Let me see.
They didn't give a name. Alexander Wright, if you could give us a name, we'll see if we can look into it to some extent.
Also, I did want to. It occurred to me for the previous one.
Yep.
Who's that?
Dan Lopez.
Dan Lopez. We did do an episode of this show with Roanoke Gaming, Roanoke Tales, where we talked about the biology of Bigfoot and what would be plausible in the Pacific Northwest and North America overall. That might be one you have an interest in.
Yeah, 100%. And the Bigfoot series that we kind of paused for at the moment, but we'll get back to it eventually. The Foxo Gaming for $4 asks, "When stream from middle of woods at night?"
I mean, it's more an issue of service.
Yeah. I mean, we do. We go out.
We have no problem doing that.
We go out into the woods in the middle of the night.
Dude.
Semi-frequently?
Yeah, Wendigo comes after me. Hope it likes 556.
They're not going to have a good time.
No, the Wendigo will not have a good time.
No.
I will show you the meaning of hollow point ammunition.
Mike DeRusher for 199 says, "Will Ferrell, not Ferrell, is responsible for missing 411."
You know what? I like that take.
Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty solid SNL skit.
I agree.
Just Will Ferrell.
But Ferrell.
Yeah.
Yep.
He announces his presence with a certain instrument taken from the ranches he haunts.
A cowbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my mind went a few places first, and I was trying to figure out where you were going, because I know they were not it.
No.
Miss Maury for $2 asking, "Can we get more details on Blobfest for those in PA?"
Yeah, it is this upcoming Saturday and Sunday, the 14th and 15th. We will have a booth here on Bridge Street in Phoenixville. 13th and 14th?
I think it's 12th, 13th, 14th, because I think it starts on Friday and goes in through Sunday.
Oh, I guess it is the 13th, 14th. I know we got an email about it.
I think it's the 12th, too.
Might be the 12th, too. Yeah. Let me check my email.
It's this weekend.
It is this weekend. It is in Phoenixville. We will definitely be there Saturday and Sunday. I can tell.
Yep.
The 14th and the 13th and 14th, we will definitely be there. Let me check.
We gotta figure out when we're gonna film.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Well, hang on. I'm looking up Blobfest really quick. Cynthia.
I think this was in reference to Unsub, but John Black
yes,
for $1.
Saturday, July 13th. Okay.
John Black for $1.99 says, "Grip strength is an unfortunate superpower." I think it's in reference to the Unsub. Our superpowers on that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. I forgot about those. We're not going to talk about them here. This is a family-friendly program.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was cleaning my apartment on Saturday morning, I had that on double speed in the background just to make sure I didn't say anything stupid. And I was worried about it. I was worried I was gonna look like an idiot. But I was just going through, and I was thankfully relieved. But we got to that part, and when we started going through it, I was like, "Oh, I thought this was for the Patreon." I was like, "Oh, I thought we had gotten to that point." No, we didn't.
No, we did not get to that point.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's on the internet now.
It is incredible. Rugged World 1368 for $5 says, "Have you seen Tubi's Scariest Monsters Around the World or just participated in it? If so, do you disagree with some of it?"
You guys remember that video of when Emilia Clarke was on the red carpet and they were asking her about the final season of Game of Thrones? She just went, "Best season ever." Yeah, that's... I did an hour and a half long interview, and I think they used approximately 9 seconds of it. Which, like,
Wow.
if you'd had me do it over Google Meet or in my own studio, sure, whatever. Like, it's an hour and a half of my time that I wait. I wasn't paid, by the way. I was supposed to be. I never got paid. It was not going to be a lot of money. It was going to be like $300. I never got paid. I had to fly down to Knoxville, so I had to spend 2 days traveling. They had me there for like a night, so it wasn't like I really had time to explore. And I mean to give you the gist of it, I don't know who was the decision maker here, but somebody made the decision that we're going to go entertainment over information. Having watched it, I think the reason that my segments were not used all that much is because they were too academic. They were contradictory to a number of the others. I mean, I basically, thinking back on it, I said stuff that basically said everybody else was wrong. Not because I knew what anybody else had said, just because most of the other people were, they were storytellers. They were paranormal people. They were not researchers. So they went more the route of entertainment than facts, and that was frustrating for me. Felt a little disrespected that they dragged me down there just to barely use me. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's whatever. I would not take it to be a factual account of anything. If I said it, trust it as you'd trust me normally. To whatever extent you trust me, that is the level you should trust what I said. Everything else, I would take with a grain of salt.
We're coming up here on the end, just considering things are
Sure.
after the time here. Magdalenius Rex for $2 said, "Sorry, M&D is Morals and Dogmas, and
Okay.
OCA is Orth Church America."
Okay, I've read portions of Morals and Dogma, haven't finished it, but yeah, I would check with the Orthodox Church. There's a priest here in town who I can ask to, and I could get you an answer on the next episode. Pretty chill with Father Peter.
Kelly, the official data for 499 says, "Thornbury, you have the Bowdish and Celestial Navigation is at your fingertips." Yeah, I'm so little thing here. So because of the Captain Cat streams that we've been doing with Cat, Kellen, Audrey, and like 2 or 3 other people have been relatively consistent there. It's hilarious for us to have 500,000 on this, and then we'll have like 5 people like consistently on that. You do not need to check out my personal channel while Cat and I do what we literally titled the worst stream ever made.
You can, though.
But you can, but there's a reason it's called the worst stream ever made, is because
They're not good.
No,
They're entertaining. They're not good.
Yeah, no, it's zero effort whatsoever. All of the equipment stays at the office now, so it's literally my webcam sat up behind us on the couch, and it's just showing the TV and then us on either side of it.
I have a capture card, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I have a capture card he could be using.
Yeah, we just like the nostalgic feel. That's all. Nonetheless, Kellen gave me, as an ex-submariner that he is, some links to some of the nautical, like the books. Bowditch being a 800-page like seamanship guide, essentially. And there's a couple other Coast Guard things or whatever. I started printing out Bowditch to attempt to like get it in a binder. And I had messaged him in a response to something he had said on Discord. And he messaged me privately, and he's like, "Dude, they sell the book. Like it's available, and it's going to be a lot more expensive to print."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. You sent me PDFs. I just figured that meant that it wasn't a consistent book, and that they were just updating PDFs online, because a lot of things do that now."
It's true.
But no, I got the most current books on the way. They weren't that expensive. It was nice. So thank you, Kellen.
Okay, we'll be out of here.
And that's it for relevancy.
All right. Well, considering it is nearly 9 o'clock, for those who chatted but it did not get read, how many are there? A lot?
Probably like 12
Probably like 12?
ish.
Were they questions or were they just chats?
I think they were just chats.
Yeah, if you want to go through them and just really quickly read through the ones that we didn't touch on.
That
What?
totally not JMO. Do you want to read that one?
No. No, I do not. I appreciate it, but no, I do not.
Justin Patrick for $2 said already at 401k.
Woo!
Wyatt Dye for $5 is asking if we will do an update on Tom Messick when we the guest that you had last
Yes.
time will goes back with the team of search.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have him on again.
and
to
we're
go
hoping to
over
be
it.
with the team.
Yeah, we're hoping to go.
Yeah. I know Kat wants to go because she has a metal detector, so she wants to help with the crew.
Nice.
Yep. The Cast Man for $5 says, if you want to do the JFK assassination, get Corey Hughes on. He's the best JFK researcher out there. Like Politis, he is also a former cop.
All right. I can take a look. I'm certainly interested at best researcher in like Politis, but we'll see.
Brian Winters 499 says, have Eli adjust your cameras. Audio is fine. I think it's just poking fun at the people saying audio is problematic. Ace Darkblade 15 says, so glad I finally caught this. Glad to have you here.
Hello.
Eric Elifson, yep, that's it for 556. Love the specificity. Says, love the show. Quick video idea. Midnight hikes, not to provoke anything, but to see two dudes fool around in the woods at night.
I can think of some websites where you could see two dudes fool around in the woods at night.
Yeah, I wasn't going to make the joke, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I think that could be something we do.
Yeah. Why not?
Hey, don't do this thing. Anyway, we're live streaming.
Yeah. Unfortunate Son became a new member.
Love that. I love that name.
So good. Magdalenis Rex for $2 says, banned cause secretism and Jabloon.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's just them not knowing what's going on.
Fair enough.
That's just the church not knowing what things mean.
Got it. Raggedy Ann for $2 says, thoughts on the latest Armored Skeptic video?
Haven't seen it. From what I understand, he's a Tartaria guy, right?
No idea, to be honest with you. The Lightning King is a new member.
Thank you.
And finally, Gone for $5 says, remember, Windussi milk in the Windussi is always free. Also, my lesbian Windussi bodyguard says that it's now Gay Wrath Month?
Gay Wrath Month?
Next month is Gay Lust Month. Interesting.
Oh boy, so we're going through all the sins?
Brutal.
Gay Glutton Month?
I don't want to know. I don't even want to think about it.
Gay Envy Month?
You know,
Gay Sloth Month?
You know, honestly, Gay Envy.
That comes after Gay Gluttony Month.
Gay Envy is probably just like 40s white people who really hate their spouse.
Oh,
That's
this
gay
is
envy.
dangerous. This is a dangerous topic of conversation to be having right now.
Yep. I like the idea
boy.
of Gay Envy Month, where it's
I
just a
do
bunch
like
of
Gay
people
Envy
who are
Month,
like
yeah.
who are just like they're cis people who really are just unhappy with their life, and they're like, man, I wish I was gay.
Gay Envy Month is just straight people at Pride.
Yeah, yeah, love that.
Oh boy. All right. Well, a happy Gay Wrath Month to all of you, I guess.
Incredible.
I'm gonna tell Mandy about that one. She'll like it.
Oh, I bet imagine. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out, for sending us money so we could read what you said, and just in general for being awesome. 500K is wild. Would not have guessed we would be there this fast. And to all of you who have been along for the ride, to everybody who's new from Unsub or something else, and of course to everybody who was here to help us along the way to getting here. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we hope to see some of you this weekend.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye, guys.